Xavier Vincent was a man born in the wrong era. He would have fit in perfectly a millennia ago in a frontier city during the gold rush in the old Wild West. Instead, luck would have him born just in time to see the first human colonists leaving good old Terra for parts unknown. He sold all he had for a ticket on a long-range colony ship, strapped his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's six-shooter to his hip, and brought his horse on the long cryosleep. Then, a century later, his ship was stopped by a Terran Alliance vessel. As it turns out, humanity found several species who helped them breach the technological gap, and faster-than-light travel was achieved in a fraction of what scientists had expected. Vincent was crestfallen when he arrived at his planet of destination. It was an old, vibrant city, and not a barely functioning colony like he had hoped. Once more, the times had played him a bad hand, but he refused to give up and boarded a shuttle for the further planetoid in the system, where a small farming city of Silos, vaguely elf-like humanoids, were living a simple life. It's on the outskirts of the small city, a village really, called Tranquility, where Vincent lay, crushed under the carcass of his horse Betty, bleeding to death. Shot to death by pirates, bandits by any other name. Not sure if this is the worst way I could have died or the best. A few hours ago, a group of 20 had shown to the outpost Vincent called home. They had asked him for his horse and weapons, made it clear that while worded politely, it was very much an ultimatum. He had drawn his gun and shot 2 of them dead before their leader blew Betty and him up. The bandits cursed a storm, and one of them moved in to finish him off. "No," said the leader. "Leave him to die a slow death. I want him to know that because of his actions the city will burn. We wanted to have a bit of fun, but you killed our good friends. That demands retribution." He moved in close and whispered the last part in Vincent's ear. "I hope you live long enough to see the flames from here." He wished he could say something. Move a muscle, spit in his face, something, anything, but his sight was becoming hazy, and his eyes began to close. Vincent woke up, still under his horse, still bleeding to death but otherwise feeling fine. "What are you?" The interrogation seemed to come from the wind itself, rather than be carried by it. "Dying. More specifically?" "Bleeding to death, I guess." "Species!" The voice sounded annoyed. "Human. And who or what might you be, friend?" A dust devil appeared in front of Vincent, and coalesced into a creature that looked like a Silos, if it was made of wind and sand. "I'm a demon from these parts. I own many souls, but not a human one. Care to make a deal?" The apparition looked over his shoulder. "You don't mind, right?" Vincent followed his line of sight, and saw a skeletal figure wearing a black cloak, sitting on a folding chair reading a book. Death made a dismissive gesture and muttered something about free will, and kept on reading. Vincent raised an eyebrow but didn't give it more thought. He had an idea, and more importantly a village to save. "Bring me and Betty back with bodies that can't die. Once I stop the bandits, my soul is yours." The demon smiled, and was about to lay his hand on him, and Betty, when Vincent stopped him. He seemed to have remembered something. "Oh yes, they have a long head start by now, and even on her best day Betty could never catch up in time. Make her as swift as the wind, and make sure she can't tire." Death raised his head at this, and for a moment was about to say something, but he caught the look on Vincent's eyes, grinned, and returned to his book. "Fine." Then the creature touched both Vincent and his horse. Lady Slenas, Mayor of Tranquility, was holed up in her residence with the rest of the folk, as Torian and his pirates destroyed everything in sight. They claimed Old Man Vincent had killed 2 of their numbers, and they would now pay the price. Slenna's thoughts went to the old human. He had moved in a few months ago to the furthest outpost still technically within city limits, and spent any free time he had riding his beast of burden at speeds most sentient species would deem unsafe. Most of the able-bodied men were working in the fields and would not be back in time to be of any help. "Wished you had killed a few more, you old weirdo." She was getting ready to arm the women and children when an unnatural mist rolled into town. The pirates stopped what they were doing and looked about in shocked confusion. Then shots came from the mist. The other women and children had no idea what was happening, but Lady Slenna's recognized the sound of Big Iron, Old Man Vincent's archaic weapon. As screams and explosions echoed throughout the city, Torian was terrified. He had heard the weapon a few hours ago, but the owner of said weapon was very much past saving when he had left him.
"It can't be him. He's dead. He has to be."
The mist began to lift, and Torian felt better every passing second, until he noticed he was the only member of his group still standing. "Shouldn't have done that, friend. Shouldn't have gone after the good folk of Tranquility." The mist hadn't lifted as he had hoped. Torian watched with mounting horror as the mist gathered into the shape of the man he had killed earlier. He was still mounted on his strange beast, and as the monstrosity drew its weapon from its holster faster than it should be possible, Torian heard more than felt the bullet that ended his life. Lady Slenna's had many questions. That is, until a dust devil formed next to the phantasmal human.
"He made a deal with a demon. For us."
She felt relief and sorrow, and then her relief turned to guilt.
"Time to go. We had a deal."
"I reckon you're right." Old Man Vincent tipped his hat in the direction of Lady Slenna's, and reared his horse on his hind legs, and grinned. "You'll have to catch me first, though." At which point he rode off like the wind. Literally. The people of Tranquility were shocked, but not as shocked as the demon, who hesitated just long enough for Vincent to gain an insurmountable head start. From this point on days of heavy rain, or when mist would roam the land, the sound of hooves could be heard, accompanied by the laughter of the damned. A rider running for his very soul, a dead man, having the time of his life.